friends, welcome to Thursday. Today is our second to last day of reading Ramona and Beezus. We're going to read the second to last part today, then we'll finish the story tomorrow. We left off yesterday. Ramona had sneakily thrown a party for all of her friends and did not tell anyone in her family that all these little kids were coming over. And then, when things weren't going exactly like Ramona had planned, she started throwing a temper tantrum. So when we left off, she had been sent to her room until she could behave herself. Ramona kicked harder to show that she was not going to mind, unless she felt like it. "Ramona," said Mother even more quietly, "don't make me count to 10." Gasping with sobs, Ramona got up from the floor and ran into the bedroom, where she slammed the door as hard as she could. "All right, parade," said Mother wearily. "Forward march." Up and down, whistling, banging, tooting, marched the parade. Mother sat Willie Jean down and was just beginning to gather up the dishes and sheets when a car stopped in front of the house and Mrs. Kemp got out. "At last," sighed Mother, hurrying to the door. "I've come for Howie and Willie Jean," said Mrs. Kemp, as several other cars stopped in front of the Quimbys. The parade marched into the living room. "I don't want to go home," protested Howie when he saw his mother. "The party must have been a success," Mrs. Kemp observed. "It certainly was." Mother tried to push the uncurled side of her hair behind her ear and to smooth it out like a rumpled dress. "I'd like to play parade," said Howie, "but I didn't like what they had to eat." "Why, Howie," scolded Mrs. Kemp, "we must remember our manners." Ramona, her face streaked with tears, came out of her room and stared unhappily at the departing guests. When the last child had struggled into his boots, she looked tearfully at her mother. "I'm behaving myself now," she said weakly. Mother dropped wearily into the chair. "Ramona, if you wanted a party, why didn't you ask me to have one?" "Because when I ask, you don't let me do things," explained Ramona, sniffling. Beezus couldn't help feeling there was some truth in Ramona's remark. She often felt that way herself, especially when she was younger. Mother, did I do things like Ramona when I was 4?" she asked. "You did some of the things Ramona does now," said Mother thoughtfully, "but you were really very different. You were quieter, for one." This pleased Beezus. One of the reasons she sometimes disliked Ramona was because she was never quiet, and Ramona was that she was never quiet when she could manage to be noisy. "Of course, there are some things that all 4-year-olds do," Mother continued, "but even sisters are usually different, just the way your Aunt Beatrice and I were very different when we were girls. I was a bookworm, and I went to the library 2 or 3 times a week. She was the best hopscotch player and the fastest jump roper in the neighborhood, and she was better at jacks than anybody in our whole school." This surprised Beezus. She had never thought about her mother and aunt as children before. She tried to picture her schoolteacher aunt jumping rope and found it, to her surprise, it was not very hard to do. Of course, Mother and Aunt Beatrice must have been very different when they were girls, because they were so different now that they're grown up. And she was glad they were different. She loved them both. "Did I have tantrums too?" Beezus asked. "Once in a while," said Mother. "I always dreaded cutting your fingernails because you kicked and screamed." Beezus could not help feeling silly. Imagine having a tantrum over a little thing like fingernail cut. Then Ramona spoke. "I don't cry when you cut my fingernails," she boasted. "Yes, but you scream when you have your hair washed," Beezus couldn't help reminding her. "Ramona," said Mother, "you are a very naughty girl this afternoon. What are we going to do with you?" Ramona stopped sniffling and looked interested. "Lock me in a closet for a million years," she suggested cheerfully. Mother and Beezus exchanged glances. How quickly Ramona recovered. "Make me sleep outdoors in the rain?" Obviously, Ramona was enjoying herself. "Not let me have anything to eat but carrots?" Mother laughed and looked at Beezus. "I'm afraid all we can do is wait for her to grow up," she said. And when Mother said "we" like that, Beezus almost felt sorry for Ramona, because she would have to wait such a long time to be a grown-up. Chapter 6. Beezus's Birthday. When Beezus came home from school on the afternoon of her 10th birthday, she felt that so far the day had been perfect. Packages by her plate at breakfast, a new dress to wear to school, the whole class singing happy birthday just for her. But the best part was still to come. Aunt Beatrice was coming for dinner. Beezus could hardly wait to tell her aunt about acting the part of Sacagawea, leading Lewis and Clark across the plains to Oregon at the PTA meeting. And of course, Aunt Beatrice would bring more presents, very special presents, because she was Aunt Beatrice's namesake. And at dinner there would be a beautiful cake with 10 candles. Mother had probably worked all afternoon baking and decorating the cake and now had it hidden away in a cupboard. When Mother kissed Beezus, she said, "I'm sorry, Beezus, but I'll have to ask you to keep Ramona out of the kitchen for a while." "Why?" asked Beezus, thinking her mother was planning a surprise. "So I can bake your cake," Mother explained. "Isn't it baked yet?" exclaimed Beezus. "Oh, Mother!" "It has been one of those days when I couldn't seem to get anything done," said Mother. "It was my morning for the nursery school carpool. After I picked up all the children and drove them to the nursery school and came home, and I did the breakfast and made in the dishes and made the beds, it was time to pick up the children and take them all home again. And after lunch I started the cake and I had the cream and the sugar and the butter and the electric mixer when I was called on the telephone. But when I came back, do you know what had happened?" "What?" said Beezus, pretty sure Ramona had something to do with it. "Ramona had dropped all the eggs in the house into the batter and had started the mixer," said Mother. "Shells and all?" asked Beezus, horrified. "Shells and all," repeated Mother wearily. "And so I had to get in the car again and drive to the market and buy more eggs." "Ramona, why did you have to go and do something like that for?" Beezus demanded of her little sister, who was playing with her doll Bendix. "To see what would happen," answered Ramona. "She doesn't look a bit sorry," thought Beezus, "spoiling my birthday cake like that." "Don't worry, dear. There's still plenty of time to bake another," said Mother. "If you'll just keep Ramona out of the kitchen, I can get it in the oven in no time at all." This made Beezus feel better. At least she would have a birthday cake, even if it did mean looking after Ramona for a while. "Read to me," Ramona demanded. "Read about Big Steve." "I'll read to you, but I won't read that book," said Beezus, going to the bookcase. She really wanted to read one of her birthday books, called 202 Things to Do on a Rainy Afternoon, but she knew Ramona would insist on a story. "How about Hansel and Gretel?" she asked. "Next to stories with lots of noise, Ramona likes stories about witches, goblins, and ogres." "Yes, I like Hansel and Gretel," agreed Ramona, as she climbed onto the davenport and sat Bendix next to her. "Okay, I'm ready. Now you can begin." Beezus curled up at the other end of the davenport with Grimm's Fairy Tales. "Once upon a time," she began, and Ramona listened contentedly. When she did not have to make noise like machinery, Beezus enjoyed reading to Ramona, and this afternoon reading aloud was particularly pleasant with Mother in the kitchen baking a birthday cake. As Beezus read, she listened to the whir of the mixer and the sound of the eggs being cracked against a bowl. Beezus read about Hansel's leaving a trail of crumbs behind him as he and Gretel went into the woods. She read the part Ramona liked best, which is the witch trying to fatten Hansel. Ramona listened wide-eyed until Beezus came to the end of the story where Gretel pushed the witch into the oven and escaped through the woods with her brother. "That's a good story," said Ramona, as she jumped down from the davenport. Surprised that Ramona didn't demand another story, Beezus picked up 202 Things to Do on a Rainy Afternoon and began to read. She was learning how to make a necklace out of beans and pumpkin seeds painted with fingernail polish when a lovely sweet vanilla fragrance began to fill the house. Beezus knew her birthday cake was safely in the oven at last. Ramona's unusual silence made Beezus glance up from her book. "Ramona," she cried, when she saw what her little sister was doing. "Stop that right away!" Ramona was busy pulling graham cracker crumbs out of the pockets of her overalls and sprinkling them all over the rug. "I'm Hansel, leaving a trail of crumbs through the woods," she said, digging more crumbs out of her pocket. "My father is a poor woodcutter." "Oh, Ramona," said Beezus, but she had to giggle at the thought of her father as a woodcutter. Ramona sprinkled more crumbs on the rug, and Beezus knew she had to do something about it. "Why don't you pretend you're Gretel?" she suggested, because Gretel did not leave rugs on the floor, or crumbs on the floor. "Okay," said Ramona. "That was easy," thought Beezus, and she went on reading about making a complete set of doll furniture out of old milk cartons. How good her birthday cake smelled! She hoped Mother would remember she had asked for pink frosting. She heard the oven door open and close. "Mother must be peeking into the oven to see how my cake is coming along," she thought. Beezus read on, absorbed in the directions of making a vase out of a tomato juice can. "Something smells funny," she thought, as she turned a page. Then she stopped and sniffed. The air no longer was filled with the lovely warm fragrance of a baking cake. It was filled with a horrid rubbery smell. "That's funny," thought Beezus. "I wonder what it can be." She sniffed again. Maybe somebody was burning trash outside and the smell was coming in through the window. Mother came into the living room from the bedroom. "Beezus, do you smell something rubbery?" she asked anxiously. "Yes, it smells awful," said Beezus. Ramona held her nose. Mother sniffed again. "It smells as if something is scorching, too." Beezus went into the kitchen, where she found that the smell was so strong it made her cough. "It's worse in here, Mother," she called, and she looked to see if anything was burning in the oven. Then Beezus remembered the oven. Mother, she said in a worried voice, you don't suppose something has happened to my birthday cake again? Of course not, said Mother, coming into the kitchen to open the window. What could happen to it? Just to be sure, Beezus cautiously opened the oven door. Mother, she cried, horrified at what she saw. Look! Ramona's rubber doll, Bendix, leaned over the edge of the cake pan, her head and arms buried in the batter. Her dress was scorched into a golden tan. Oh, Mother, repeated Beatrix. Her birthday cake, her beautiful, fragrant birthday cake, was ruined. So Ramona put her doll in the oven. Is the witch done? Ramona asked. Ramona, began Mother, and she stopped. She couldn't think of anything to say. Silently, she turned off the oven with the potholder, pulled the doll out, and the remains of the cake. Ramona Geraldine Quimby, said Beezus angrily, you are just awful. That's what you are, just plain awful. Spoiling your own sister's birthday cake. You told me to pretend I was Gretel, protested Ramona, and Gretel pushed the witch into the oven. Beezus looked at the cake and burst into tears. Ramona promptly began crying too. This made Beezus even angrier. You stop crying, she ordered Ramona furiously. It was my birthday cake. I'm the one who's supposed to be crying. Girls, said Mother in a tired voice. Ramona, you've been very naughty. You know better than to put things in the oven. Now go to your room and stay there until I say you can come out. Sniffling, Ramona started toward the bedroom. And don't you dare put your toys on my bed, said Beezus. Mother, can you fix the cake? I'm afraid not. Mother pointed at the cake with her finger. It's fallen, and anyway, it would probably taste like burnt rubber. Beezus tried to brush the tears out of her eyes. Ramona spoils everything, and now I won't have any birthday cake, and Aunt Beatrice is coming, and it won't be my birthday at all. I know Ramona is a problem, but we'll have to be patient because she's little, said Mother, as she scraped the cake into the garbage can, and you will still have cake. I'll phone your Aunt Beatrice and ask her to bring one from the bakery. Oh, Mother, will you? Asked Beezus. Yes, that's what I'll do, said Mother. Now run along and wash your face, and you'll feel better. But as Beezus held her face cloth under the faucet, she was not at all sure she would feel better. For Ramona to spoil not one birthday cake, but two. Probably nobody else in the whole world had a little sister who spoiled two birthday cakes on the same day. Beezus scrubbed away at the tear stains, feeling more and more sorry for herself for having such an awful little sister. If Ramona were only bigger, things might be different, but since she was so much younger, she would always be, well, a pest. Then a terrible thought came to Beezus again. The thought she'd had the time Ramona bit into the apples, and she had to shove the dog in the bathroom. She tried not to think the thought, but she couldn't help it. There were times when she did not love Ramona. This was one of them. Everyone knew sisters were supposed to love each other. Look how much Beatrice and Mother loved each other. Beezus felt very gloomy indeed as she dried her face. She was a terrible girl who did not love her sister, like a wicked sister in a fairy tale, and on her birthday too, a day that she was supposed to be happy. We'll find out tomorrow how the story ends.